This control, I gotta push the button to mute it, right? Well, the green light goes off, I assume that means it stops recording.
We got 3 extra copies coming again to see you guys. Share that.
That's all right.
This will be my official
Goal 710. Yeah, I think we got 2 copies. That's why we've been.
So I'm going to defer anything I can say, here, talk about. I assume that we were just going to do the due diligence to make sure this was all. But no one can come back to the question, so. No.
All right, I think we've got everybody here, so let's go ahead and get started with our RDC meeting for May 14th, 2025. Secretary, would you like to do the roll call, please?
Sure will. Paul out.
Here.
Al Myers here. Rich Griswold.
Here.
Phil Decker.
Present.
Derek Grant.
Here.
We're all present. We have a forum.
All right. Well, let's go through some of our little stuff here because we've got quite a bit to cover today. You all have the minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any questions on the minutes? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Move we approve the minutes as distributed.
Thank you, Phil. Second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the motion is approved. Let's see, we have a claims report in here. It looks like the claims this month are the finishing up of the cleanup on the lots up on Morgan and Wayne Street. We have a newspaper for the public notice for bids for the paving, which we'll address that down in here. We have a invoice from Peter Franklin for some work that they've done, and then another one for a correspondence. So you have copies of all the invoices in your packet. If there's any questions, I will ask for a motion.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Al. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, dear. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's taken care of. You have your copies in here of the fund report showing our balances on our 2 bonds right now. The one we're down pretty low. Gary, do you have anything to report on these? Nope.
Nope.
And you have the list of all the expenditures of everything that's been paid on those also. All right, moving on, let's jump into our attorney report. Joe, what all you got for us?
Nothing really for me directly, I'll basically defer at this point to Jeff Peters to talk about our annual presentation, and Dennis is here from Mosby County to talk about the bond that we have coming up for the theater, so I've just been working with them, and they've been doing all the heavy lifting, so nothing else really has been going on that I've been needing to do since we were here last month, so I'll defer to anything else they have to say.
All righty, thank you. Gary, what all do you have for us today?
Couple of things, wrapping up the sewer project up on Main Street, still some detailing down in Hacker. I ran those totals with adding all of the potential back charges into there and extras, and there were several up Main Street because of the shale that they ran into, the site conditions that they found. We were running the total, we had 1.1 million in one, 1 million in the other, that adds to 2.1. As I totaled those two up with all the extras in there, it's 2.196, so right now, $96,000 is what we're on, $2.1 million. So we came in really close there. Doing really well. Levy projects are ahead of schedule. Expect both of them to finish probably in July of this year. I need to do an updated report to the IFA where that stands. I talked to NDOT on theirs just yesterday, so we're moving forward with those. Those are beginning to wrap up your original 21 bonds and stuff. That's coming to a close and all that. We still owe some money out towards our portion of the grant match on the south levy. That was 20 plus 3. We negotiated with them. We give them back $6 million, but they take back $1 million of ours. So we ended up at 14 and 2 rather than 20 and 3. They were thrilled to death to get $6 million back in their pocket.
All right, any questions for Gary? Okay, in unfinished business, with the newspaper being a once-a-week publication, we were not able to get the notice out for our meeting, the special meeting we had a couple weeks ago. The dates on the bid that was submitted was from an old date, so we had to repost it, take rebids and all that. So we will have a special meeting May the 28th at 7:30 in the morning right here. So next Wednesday no, not next Wednesday, 2 weeks from Wednesday, to open all bids for, this will be for the paving of the city lots at Morgan and Wayne Street. There's paving involved, there's sidewalks involved in it, some electrical work, anything else I'm missing on that. There's quite a bit in that. So hopefully we'll have a couple more bids that will look at opening and then assign that so we can get that project up and going and get it finished up before the county starts with the renovation of the courthouse and the square. Also, we'll have some additional parking for the city. So if you all could put that on your calendars for the 28th at 7:30, shouldn't take us very long to open all the bids up and assign that real quick. So, any questions on that before we jump into all our new stuff here? Anything else we need to go over before we get into the new stuff? All right, Jeff, I'm going to let you take over and give us our annual report and some other information that you have also.
Thank you. We sent down for you the annual presentation. And again, this, as we've talked about previous years, is a requirement over the last few years for you to inform the underlying taxing entities that you impact, what is the actual impact for them? So we've got a table of contents. Three things specifically that we need to address in this is the commission's budget with respect to the allocated property tax proceeds, the long-term plans of the allocation area, and the impact on each taxing unit. You know, as identified, you have one allocation area or one consolidated TIF area, and your spending plan, as you've adopted in these various allocation areas and adjustments to it over time, you are to fund predominantly redevelopment, development in the areas that promote economic growth and development, funds to be used for construction or reconstruction of sewer lines, water lines, storm damage systems, storm drainage systems. Funds also to be used for construction, reconstruction of sidewalks, curbs, street lighting, traffic signalization, buffer zones, bounding, landscaping, beneficial environmental projects, public buildings, equipment to serve the area, parking, lighting, site preparation, excavation, drainage, gateway beautification, identification, and communication systems. So as you can imagine, in a city of your age, you have far more needs than you're ever going to have money. So as you identify those as the Redevelopment Commission, those are part of your long-term plans for the allocation area. Next page, looking at a cash flow for 2024, 25, and 26. You'll see in 2024, you started the year with about $854,000. Your settlement or TIF revenue was $1,868,000. There were also some other adjustments in there. We had in 2023 some amounts that should have flowed into the RDC fund that did not. But those have been rectified so that when you began 2025, cash is right in your pot. You started 2025 with $2,789,000. Anticipated revenue for this year is about $2.1 million. So your receipts for your allocation area continue to grow. Commitments out of that, you have $805,000 for debt service on your 2021 bonds. Normal expenditures for professional fees, I put in at the amount you actually expended in 2024, which was $82,706. And then you've also got $950,000 in additional projects being undertaken in 2025. If all of that comes to fruition, you'll end the year with approximately $3.1 million. The assumption for 2026 is that you'll again receive about $2.1 million in revenue. And then for the expenditure side, we look at all of the outstanding debt service on those 21 bonds that you have committed at this point to pay from your TIF revenues, and all of the outstanding projects that you identified when you revised one of your allocation areas in 2022 and kind of restated what those projects were. Looking at that, you're short about $18 million at the end of 2026. And again, the reason we show this is to show that of your revenues that you have in, you have fully committed all of those, and you have obligations beyond that, meaning that you need to continue the Redevelopment Commission and continue to collect those TIF revenues in order to pay for those projects that you've already committed to and the debt service that you've already committed to. Commentary on that is just what I explained to you. And the reason I write these and prepare them this way is if a underlying unit of government asks you that question, well, what is the impact of me on your activities? This is something I think you can just hand to them and it's self-explanatory and they can walk through it. So the next page goes into the actual impact. So if we look at the 2024 assessed value and the rates the rate for the taxing district that you're in is 2.5333. It also has some fixed rate funds. The CCD fund for the county and the CCD fund for the city. And some people, when they are critical of the redevelopment commission, will say, hey, we don't want you to collect $2 million a year. You should give that back to the schools, the library, the township, etc. Well, it doesn't work that way, because the maximum levies for operations are set for those various units of government. So you can't just give the money back. Just because you can collect it in this format of TIF does not allow them to just take it over. What happens is you can choose to release part of the tax base or that increment that you have accumulated in the TIF districts back to the tax base. If you do that, what happens is the tax rate will drop, and then there will be some impacts from that. And that's what we're gonna walk through here real quick. So in 2024, your TIF AV was about $73 million. If you were to release that back to the tax base, the district rate would fall from 2.5333 to 2.3385. If you were to do that, fewer properties would qualify for the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps. So therefore, there would be more net collected property taxes for the various units of government. The estimate for that, the little rectangle there in the center, would be $13,161 by releasing everything that you've collected. That's spread between the county at $1,592, the city at $66.72, the school at $41.19, and the various other ones. In addition to that, there are certain funds, as we talked about before, that are fixed rate. The CCD fund for the county, the CCD fund for the city. Therefore, if you released $73 million back into the tax base, they would apply that same statutory rate to that new assessed value. They would actually gain additional tax dollars. And that bottom section shows you for the county, they would collect property and then other taxes like vehicle excise taxes of about $26,269. The city would pick up about $34,710. So if you look at the far right-hand bottom column, total impact, including those property taxes and circuit breaker, is approximately $74,139. Again, you have collected annually or are scheduled to about $2 million a year. So the question is, if we are undertaking beneficial projects that grow the entire pie for everyone, why would we give back $74,000 benefit at the expense of $2 million that we can use for projects that need to be done, make everything better, and bring all the values up? And last page is a commentary that just restates that again, so this is kind of self-standing for you. Is there any underlying tax units here? Typically, I take questions if there were any, but nobody seems to show up for these either. Second part that came down, you know, annually you have to provide to the county auditor by the middle of June that you can either pass some of this assessed value back or none at all. Again, as we talked about previously, you have more needs than you have revenue, even in the current scenario. The other thing we prepared for you is an Exhibit A, and this is something that predates us, but this was a worksheet when we got here that you were utilizing. So again, we've looked at that just for the analysis of the revenues that you have, your projected expenditures, your bond payments, professional services, capital outlays, and running through the math on that worksheet, your percentage is about 35%. If you hit where you have 200% of an amount of excess process, then it goes to the council for them to make a decision as to whether they should give back any of that or not. If you're not in that scenario, so, this is your kind of addendum and support to the resolution that you have at the end. And I think now if you want to act on the resolution that says that you're not going to hand back any of the assessed value to the underlying taxing units, this would be a good time to do that.
Any questions, comments, or anything before we take a quick vote to pass a resolution to not give it back?
And I'll just add a commentary to that. This is essentially the exact same resolution that we've done
Every year.
because we've never had money to give back. So, nothing new in that regard. And once it's approved by the commission, then I'll take care of making sure everyone that's supposed to get a copy gets one.
Can I have a motion to approve our resolution that we're not giving back?
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Paul. Second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, David. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And it looks like the ayes have got it. So we just need to sign this and get it back.
Yeah, and then I did want to talk to you kind of a thumbnail before we get Dennis up here to talk about the procedures of the theater purchase. In 2021, you issued lease rental bonds through the Redevelopment Authority. And the Redevelopment Authority is basically the building corporation for you as the Redevelopment Commission. You chose to commit your TIF revenues in order to repay that debt service, which is an option that you always have. There's also a backup security to that, which is the income taxes of the city. In I think it was 23 or 22, you undertook a new project. I believe it was it Sooner, the lift station? So, yeah, you incurred a couple $1 million of bonds, and in that bond issue, you chose to impose property taxes in order to repay that. And part of that is an ongoing strategy with the city, which was trying to maintain a level tax rate and undertake these capital projects as they needed to be done. So that was a bond issue with tax levies in 25, 24, and 23. So it is in its final year. That is getting ready to pay off. The theater project, again, in consultation with the city and the overall tax and rate structure and policy goals of the administration, is for you to undertake this theater purchase. And this is going to be kind of a mix between the two. It's going to be a lease rental, so it will be through the Redevelopment Authority, but it will be repaid with property taxes. And again, this is to help maintain that level rate of the city's tax rate. So the time period for this will stretch 20 years. It'll go onto the tax rolls, and the tax rate at the current assessed value is going to be just a little under 5 cents. The one that is falling off is, I believe, about 12 cents. So it is going down, but those tax rates will be reallocated in a different way. Any questions kind of as to the overall big picture of how we're doing that?
You said that the theater bond is a 20-year bond rather than the shorter-term bonds we've done in the past, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it is a lease rental bond, so that it's under the Redevelopment Authority, which again leaves you as the Redevelopment Commission some kind of general obligation bond cap. So if you have another project that comes along, a sewer lift station or something like that, that you want to go out and do short term, we can do that. New legislation makes short-term geo bonds an issue. If we get into a situation like that, we'll kind of walk through that as we get to it. But with that, turn it over to Dennis.
Excuse me, Jeff,
Yeah.
the theater portion, the bonds going back on the tax rolls,
Yes.
go over that again with me, please.
Okay, so for the theater, you are going to make a purchase of that theater property. You are then going to levy a tax every year for the next 20 years on the property tax rolls. And the rate under today's assessed value would be about 5 cents per $100.
So it will increase the tax rate.
Well, it won't increase the tax rate because your other debt that you issued that's been paying off the last 3 years, it's at about 12 cents and it falls off.
So in theory, they'll go down about 7 cents overall, the net.
It would, in
Yeah.
theory. But again, it depends on what other projects we're gonna pick up, because I know we're talking about, City Hall, et cetera. We also have an entire new framework that I'm gonna come out and talk to the council, within the next couple of months. We're still building the models of what it's going to look like. The new legislation in a nutshell is they're going to remove assessed value for 1% homestead property and 2% ag, rental residential. And the first, or companies that have business personal property of $2 million or less, we're going to take that assessed value out between next year and 2031. What that is likely to do, depending on your other assessed value growth, is to drive down your assessed value, which is going to drive up your tax rate, which is going to drive up your circuit breaker losses. So every unit of government net collects fewer property tax dollars toward their operations. To make that worse, they're also going to give 1% properties a 10% or $300, whichever is less, 10% or $300 actual tax credit toward their bill, which is again going to net collect even fewer dollars into the operating funds. So today, if you levy $100 and you collect 92, when we get done with this, you might be levying $100 and collecting 72. This is going to be a serious issue. And also, they've redone how all the local income taxes will work beginning in 2028. So we're going to see tax rates that we have not seen in years and years and years. But this is engineered and designed from the legislature. And I think the intent is everyone had a 1%, 2%, and 3% tax cap. You fit into basically one of those three buckets. And I think what they're going to do is drive up those rates to the point that everybody gets close to the cap or to their cap in those buckets. Sorry, that's probably a lot more than you wanted to.
Any other questions for Jeff? Do we need to do a motion to approve the report, or are we good just for the presentation?
I think just the resolution in the past. is what we've done.
Yeah, the resolution should cover that. I don't see any reason to do a vote to approve the report.
Okay, so we're good on that, we got the resolution passed. Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, next we've got, I've got the wrong name on your agenda, but Dennis is gonna talk
That's quite okay.
about, talk about, theater purchase, what we've been talking about with that, the resolutions that go with it. I talked to the mayor, and with the purchase, what soft costs, all that kind of stuff, we're looking at about $3.8 million to cover everything.
Probably, what you're doing, the 2.9 is hard cost for the building. You're financing the building. So soft costs go on top of that. Buying stage lighting, I've got sound systems, I've got curtains, I've got furniture in the different rooms, all those to go on top of that. So this is, the 2.9 is the building. That's what we'll pay. Craig Fenneman, that's his contract with Rick Campbell. By the way, they're hanging drywall in there right now, so it's on schedule. We're expected to have the building turned over to us by the end of July.
All right, Dennis, you wanna go through everything?
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Commissioners. It's good to meet you this morning. And for the record, I'm Dennis Sutton with Bose McKinney and Evans, acting as bond counsel on this. You'll see on the agenda, my partner Colin Cochran, he had a conflict this morning, so I'm filling in. I'm older than Colin, so I've been doing this a long time. So got a good understanding, and I've been chatting with Colin and Jeff about this project. I think Jeff kind of really summed it up for you here, sort of at a high level. What we're doing is issuing bonds through your redevelopment authority to fund the acquisition of the theater project. We have an not to exceed amount in the documents of $3,405,000, but we don't expect to issue that much. I think you mentioned $2.9 million, and then there'll be some soft costs associated with that. But we have two resolutions for you today. And we'll have a public hearing. I'm going to chat a little bit here, take some questions, and then I would suggest we open the public hearing and conclude that after comment, if any, and then take action on the resolutions, which I'll describe here. The first resolution we have for you today is a resolution that approves some lease agreements. We have two lease agreements. One of them is a lease between the city and the redevelopment authority. You may have heard some chatter about some roads being involved with this project. Those are just assets to go under the lease to support the rentals that the redevelopment commission has to make. Under Indiana law, for a lease financing, there has to be an asset that is available for use in order to support the lease rental. What the industry has gotten into now on a lot of these deals is just putting the roads under those leases because they're open, they're useful, they can be used to support the rentals. We also have the theater project under the lease, but we may not close on the theater until a few weeks after we close on the bonds, and so we'll put the roads in there, and then when the theater gets acquired, it'll go under the lease, and then we'll release those road assets. Jeff, you mentioned the 2021 redevelopment authority issue that the commission did. Same thing there. You guys have roads under that one. So that's that lease. It's between the city and the redevelopment authority. And we'll have the redevelopment authority meeting at 9 a.m. this morning. They're going to adopt a companion resolution that's going to approve all this. The other lease in that resolution is the one that's between the redevelopment commission and the redevelopment authority. And this basically says you're going to pay lease rentals to the redevelopment authority that are equivalent to that service on the bonds. And as Jeff mentioned, those lease rentals are going to be derived from the property tax levy that will be in effect to create the revenues to pay those. And that lease will be in effect for the term of the bonds, and then at the conclusion, lease will go away. Theater will transfer to the city, and that'll be that. That's the first resolution. The other resolution we have for you is just a general resolution approving financing documents related to the bonds and acknowledging that the redevelopment authority is going to be issuing those bonds. But with that, before we kind of get into the hearing, are there any questions that you all have for me?
Maybe more for Gary. Gary, so it looks like we're borrowing $3.4 million. You said you think it's going to cost about 3.9. I assume the remainder is going to come from TIF funds, correct?
I'm not going to read the details of that.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, but 3.9 is what you expect the total cost with soft costs. Is that correct?
2.9 did not include soft costs, that's correct.
Yeah.
3.9, is that the total?
I've never seen where that number came from.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what you said earlier today. My apologies.
I'm just building it debt.
Okay. But do we expect it to exceed what we're borrowing? I guess that's my question. I know we have funds in the TIF. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I just am curious.
I would be surprised, Derek, from what I know and see, that it goes that far.
Okay, so we expect it to stay under the bond.
I know a soft cost number of 350.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Dennis, do you know if the city has anticipated revenue from the theater and where that revenue is going to go? Will that come back in pay for the bond service, or is that going to go into city coffers, or has that number been explored and what it might be or where it might go?
It's gonna cost money, but it's like a park. Is what I
There are gonna be additional operating costs to the theater itself,
Right.
which are going to be built into the 26 budget, probably through the Parks Department. So any revenue will likely flow toward that increased operating expense in order to wipe that out.
Just trying to get self-sustaining.
Try to make it self-sustaining. I have not been told or informed that we anticipate that we're actually going to generate more than the operating costs.
I didn't think so, but figured it was a question worth asking.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know that any of that's really been vetted out much, has it been?
No.
Yeah.
As we look at other theaters in other small cities, none of them are generating any revenue. They have a self-supporting, they have a bookstore that self-supports it, but other sources, but the theater itself does not generate revenue. It's a civic service.
So the hope is just break even then. Any other questions? So we need to open up a public meeting here,
Public hearing, yeah.
a public hearing, and so we'll do that right now. Any questions from the audience? Any? Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question about the show project, that's why I'm here. I read the little flying things in the back of the paper where you guys are shooting out numbers, but while I was looking at, we could possibly be paying $50 million for that place. They were showing, we could lease that building for $285, that's the maximum lease, but you know, it's gonna come in at 150 or 200. If we end up leasing that thing, we'll have big money on a little piece of property. How can we justify it, I guess, spending all that money on this project?
You said 50 million, is that what you said?
Pardon?
You said 15 million?
50 million?
Yes, I mean, if you take the 285,000 times 25 years, you're talking big numbers.
85.7.
How much?
5.7.
5.7?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's still a lot of money for a show that we don't know is gonna make it. As far as being a business part of it, you know, we're putting a lot of money out here with nothing really coming in or no one's coming in. We're watching our restaurants change hands every 2 years on the square. And we've got, I mean, over and over and over. So, you know, you just wonder, should we be spending this kind of money this deep? It's looking good on the outside. I haven't been in it, but the building's looking good, but looking good doesn't count. I'm just curious, that's why I was here. Now you got my couch.
I might mention, I think the 285,000, and Jeff, you can chime in here, is the maximum lease rental figure in the lease. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to speak to what we actually expect the rental to be and how all that works and operates.
More just in general, that 285,000 is going to be principal and interest across that 20-year period. So obviously you have a lot of interest expense built into that 2.9 million across that time period. Again, these are the high ends that we want you to approve. We will refine that with Gary's estimates and so forth as we get close to the end. We'll size that bond down to where it needs to be in order to get the project underway.
What is the interest expense? What is the interest rate?
We won't know until we actually sell the bonds.
What are we estimated at?
Those, I think I estimated at 5.5, and it should not be near that. I say that with, you know, what goes on day to day in the government, it's hard to say. But, yeah, you know, typically what we've seen, it'll be a lot better than that. And we'll get the bonds rated as we have previously with yours and insure those so that we get a AA rating into the interest market, and we'll basically buy the best rate for you across that time period.
My understanding, Jeff, is the 285 is our worst case scenario. Obviously, if we get a better interest rate, then we're probably not gonna get there. We might not take that full amount of the bond of the 3.4, and the leases all allow for early and extra payments, so it might not even go on for the full period of the bond, which would reduce interest costs and so forth as well.
Yeah. Yeah, typically in these, in a 20-year bond issue, we'll have a 10-year call. So 10 years into the process, you know, if circumstances change, you have other available monies, you could call those bonds, retire that debt, and go forward.
Yep.
Or refund them for lower interest rate savings, if you wanted to continue the debt, but have the interest savings.
Do we want to take all of our comments and then like answer back anything? I assume that's how we've normally done it in a public meeting. So I guess I might have an answer for you. I just want to see if there's any other questions or comments before we do.
What about? Oh, sorry.
And you may have already addressed this, but going back on the amount and the restaurants that are leaving downtown or changing hands or whatever, our goal by this time next year is have an event at the theater every week. That's bringing 300 people into the downtown area. Now, I know not all of them are going to visit our restaurants, but we're hoping to get the restaurant owners on board to offer specials in order to get people in and out for the shows. So if you look at the economic impact over those 25 years, is that the bond? 20 years, I think it's going to far outweigh the $5 million we're paying for the theater. And also, you got to look at the quality of life that's bringing for our new residents that are coming in. The theater's going to be completely different than the outdoor venue. And you're right, if we spend $5 million and we're not using it every weekend, shame on me, okay? But I know that it can work. There's a group of 7 people who are working very hard to put things together. They're hoping to have their grand opening December 6th. Rob Helms is working on getting an act to come in. We'd like to have a national act, something good to kick off. Then we're going to have some movies during the Christmas season also. So, yes, it is a lot of money, but the economic impact it'll have for our downtown, it's going to be hard to measure that, but I can guarantee it'll be over $5 million. Thank you.
Any other?
How about, who's covering the maintenance on this building? The guy that owns the building or the people that's leasing? The state of Indiana used to be the leaser covering the maintenance. I don't know.
That is going to be covered up because we're going to run this under the Parks Department, isn't it, Mayor?
Well, we have,
That's why it's not showing any profit.
since you're online or whatever, I don't get yelled at. At some point, this will become a department of the cities. Right now, in the infant stage of it, we're working with a group of volunteers, and we have one lady that's going to be the executive director that's working it. Maintenance-wise, we'll probably, as far as deep cleaning and everything, it's going to be a situation we're probably going to talk to the same company that's cleaning the police station right now to come over, after shows. During the shows, we're hoping to have a base of at least 30 volunteers that will be trained. And this is a personal thing on mine. I hate walking into a dirty bathroom. So I've already told them that I will be in charge of the men's restroom to make sure it's clean before the show. If there's an intermission, I'll make sure it's clean before people go in there, and I'll clean it afterwards. Because we need to make a good first impression as people come in to it. So, yes, we are going to have to hire some maintenance. It will be up to the city to do the maintenance on that. It's not any different than any other building that we have. And we will eventually bring that in under a department for the city.
Any other questions or comments? Derek, do you want to?
I mean, in addition, you gotta remember, there's 2 things I think. One, we're buying an asset, we're buying a building. It's not something we're spending money that's going into the ether and it can never be recovered. I think the other thing is, through the Redevelopment Commission, we spent most of our money on sewer projects, water projects, things that have done a lot for the city. We spent far more money than this on those over the years. I think it's nice that we're in a situation where we can bring something to the people of Martinsville. And as the mayor said, something that's gonna bring people to the downtown. Parks and theaters are a big part of why you go to work every day. So at the end of the day, you can do something that you enjoy. So I think it's exciting to be able to bring something to the city that's gonna bring happiness to people and gonna bring an opportunity. We haven't had a movie theater here in the city now for more than 10 years, I think. And small things like that make a big difference. So it's not a small amount of money. It's not something that, we do lightly, but I think it's an important thing to have in your city, and I think it will be a beneficial thing to have in our city, and we'll be glad we spent the money at the end of the time.
Thank you. All right, anybody else have any other?
I will say from an investment and development category, I work with a lot of investors that call in. We come out and buy houses and do different things like that, but not just this project, but this sort of was the icing on the cake, that in the last 3, 4, 5 months, I've received a lot of outside investors wanting to grow, develop, do different things because of everything we have going on. And the cherry on top was really sort of the theater, which I didn't expect that. But that being said, them coming in, they're looking to move in more high-end developments, more high-end housing, which will raise our tax development and whatnot, and help the city as a whole.
And I really do think we've got some great business owners down on the square with the restaurants and all, and I do think they will run specials before, after, you can grab something to eat before you go see a movie or a show or have a drink or whatever. I think they will chime in there and run some specials and be able to produce small business for them also. Any others? All right.
So you're closing the public?
I'm going to close the public meeting and turn it back over to Dennis.
All right. Well, thank you. The next course of action would be the adoption of the 2 resolutions that you have before you. One of them is marked 2025-0709. I'm going to approach you guys here, see if I can get what's the number on the other one?
0710.
0710. So we would ask you to take motions to approve each of those resolutions, and then we can, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions before I ask for a motion?
Joe, do we need to do those separately because they're resolutions in 2 separate motions?
Probably to
Okay.
keep everything, I would say 2 separate motions.
Okay. I need a motion to approve resolution 2025-0709.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Dare. Dare, motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Now, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that resolution is passed. The second resolution, 2025-0710. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Dare. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, we have 1 opposed. And the ayes have it. The resolution is passed. All right, Dennis, anything else we need to go over?
No, that's it.
Okay, there was discussion about getting appraisal done on the building and so forth, and we've kind of talked amongst ourselves. I talked to Paul about it because trying to come up with a commercial appraiser. As you know, we had one in town. Tony Ross passed away a few years ago, so we don't really have what you would call a certified commercial appraiser in Martinsville. I have one in Bloomington that I use at my office. It's called Monroe Owen Appraisal Service. Patterson is the name. And Paul had brought up about getting with Finneman and seeing if he would come up with a name and we had a name, and that way we could have 2 appraisals done to see where the building value comes in on that. Anybody have any comments about that or questions about that? Or?
Do we know kind of a time frame? I assume it would take a month or so to get.
It'll probably take, yeah, I'd say it'll probably take probably 3 to 4 weeks to get an appraisal done if we got an order today.
Yeah. My guess is might be difficult too, just because of the type of property it's gonna be. With it being a theater, there won't be a lot of properties
Yeah,
to
and
look at.
that's why we need they deal with stuff like that. They'll sit down and look at the cost from the cost side. They'll look at, whenever it's open, the, number of foot traffic, stuff like that.
Is it something that we need to do as part of the sale, that was part of the agreement, or is this just something we think we should do just to kind of have
I'm
an
gonna
idea?
refer to you two what do you think on the appraisal?
I would say it doesn't necessarily need to be done before we close the bond issue, but before the acquisition is completed, it should be done.
Okay, and is that partially because it's gonna become an asset with the roads?
It's because it's the use of public funds.
Okay.
So you're spending public funds to acquire something, so there's some procurement things that are involved with that.
Okay.
I think,
Just to follow up on that there, the statutes that govern the RDC's ability to purchase property can't go above an appraised value, so it has to be the 2 appraisals unless the commission specifically finds a reason to go above the appraised value. So,
Okay.
yes, I agree, we don't need it to get the bond, but to actually go through the purchase, then the appraisals have to be there. So
Okay.
I think it absolutely makes sense to go commercial rather than someone that doesn't specialize in that if we have to go outside of town.
And we don't have any restrictions, we can choose an appraiser and have the seller choose an appraiser. I know some things, it's like a blind system where we can't have impact on who we choose. Is there anything in the statute that talks about that?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
as regards to that, I don't know.
It says there should be 2 appraisals. So
Okay.
whoever orders them is fine, just
Okay.
as long as the commission has two appraisals on it.
What might need to be the timing of the appraisal? Right now, it's just a shell. That's not very impressive. It's just a shell.
Well, they'll look at the plans that they have on paper right now, and they'll appraise from that. And then they'll come back once it's finished and do a final inspection just to verify.
The plans, let me illustrate, give you nothing about the interior finishes, for instance. It's plans are a shell.
Yeah.
Shows where the mechanical's gonna be, shows there's gonna be a light fixture here, not what it looks like. Shows there's gonna be curtains here, that's not what they look like. So at the time of the appraisal, I would think, would have certainly affected value.
Well, on an appraisal, they don't take into consideration, how fancy of a curtain you put up. You know a curtain's going there, that's what they're gonna go off of, because, it's like on a residential appraisal, just because you got an in-ground pool, doesn't add much value to your property. We think it does as buying it, but from a lender standpoint, that pool's worthless, because there's only a certain number of people that will buy it. So on this, they're gonna know their curtain goes there, how fancy it is, they're not gonna give you anything on that.
Shouldn't an appraisal also reflect what a buyer would pay for something? You're not.
Depends on who your buyer is. What I consider something and what, say Phil would think, we got 2 totally different opinions on.
I mean, if you look at residentials, they don't look at anything inside. They look at number of bedrooms, they look at square footage, but they don't tell you if it has hardwood floors or anything. They aren't super caring about a lot of the details, which is strange.
Doesn't
But
really have, you could spend $15,000 on a kitchen, making it fancy and all for what you got, but doesn't really add 15,000 to the price value of it. So.
it's possible we could maybe have them talk to you, Gary, just so they kind of know what's expected.
That's what any appraisals we order, I'm gonna have them go through you so that you can walk with them through it to let them know what everything's gonna be.
Yeah,
So,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I just kind of add, we deal with this quite a bit and generally talk to we don't, but our clients, we usually talk to the appraisers ahead of time. Give them the lay of the land on, what's involved with the project, what improvements are gonna be had, so the appraiser's just not kind of going in blind.
No.
Your point, just we don't want them to do a drive-by appraisal and go.
No, it's not gonna be anything like that.
We want them to know.
So we'll have both of them sit down with you to go through to what everything's gonna be, and then they'll look at the plans that Craig has to. So, any suggestions from anybody? If you all know of a different appraiser or how we're going about doing it, I like the idea of Craig picking one and us picking one. I do like that suggestion.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't personally have a suggestion, so I'm open. If you've got somebody, or if Paul's got somebody you trust, I'm fine with somebody.
Phil, do you have any
No,
commercial appraisals you've dealt with in the past?
several, but no.
Okay. Al, you got anybody?
No.
All right, we'll get with Craig and have him come up with a name, and then I'll email out everybody, the gentleman that I have, if you want to go online and look at, he's got a website of what all he's done and so forth. You guys can look at that too, so.
Can I suggest that either the formal decision on the appraisers either essentially be tabled to be voted on at the next meeting, or potentially at the special meeting if everyone's had a chance to vet that, so.
Okay.
But we probably don't have time now for the special meeting, so we'll probably have to go to next month, just as far as a formal vote resolution on hiring appraisers, who that person may be.
Do we need to do it at a special meeting, or can we do it?
No, I think we can just do it next month. I'm saying we probably don't have time to advertise.
I mean, on the appraisal, does it need to be advertised for just to order an appraisal?
No, we probably don't need to advertise that, but just that the public knows that we're
Okay.
going to be paying for something like that, even though it's kind of wrapped into the operating expenses.
Time-wise in doing the bond and all that, we have some time to get the appraisals take care of. Okay, so we have that. So, okay, so I tell you what, we'll get with Craig, get a name from him. I'll send you all out the name that I have, and let's talk about this the next meeting and vote on getting both ordered at that time. How's that? All right, anything else we need to go over today or discuss? Anybody have anything? Mayor, do you want to add anything? Jeff? Dennis, anything? Joe?
I think everything's covered.
Well, then I'm gonna motion that the meeting be adjourned then.
Do we need to sign something?
Okay, so we got to sign all that.
We need to sign it. They have our names on it.
I know what Gary was saying, but my world was revolved around praying for working people with my life is so much easier. But they're not.
It sounds like we have to have an appraisal to get it done, but I agree, doing an appraisal. Yeah, I think it's worth seeing what the group expects.